MOBIL League moves to Brisbane this week for Queensland to play the Australian Institute of Sport, and in a replay of last year's MOBIL League Grand Final, Sydney Energy take on Melbourne. Hello, I'm Steve Rebilliard for ABC Sport. We're at the Sleeman Centre in Chandler for what should be two very evenly contested games. Well, the last thing Queensland want is a second wooden spoon for the trophy cabinet or the kitchen drawer. If they're to avoid it, they must beat the A.I.S today. Let's look at the teams. And with enough ball to work with, Tollenaire and Van der Waal can do the job if they maintain their shooting average of around 70%. At wing attack, Janelle Peterson will be endeavouring to supply them with quality possession. The centre court partners, Melissa Gorringe and Carly Clark. They've received great value from their Victorian import, Peter Kennedy, and again she's supported by Kylie Garrett, and coach is Paddy Farrell. Well, in their only start so far, the A.I.S ran well with Garvel for 3 quarters, and they received plenty of mid-court drive from Jolie Riding. Kerry Duff wears the goal shooter's bib, and with her in goals, Annette Paulson. They're all from WA. 10 years ago, Shelley O'Donnell was an A.I.S scholarship holder, and they're making use of her again as their centre court import. Operating for them at the defence end are Danny Smith, Vicky Roberts and Amy Stevens, and head coach is Gay Teed. Queensland in the red and black, Institute, the red, white and blue.
Contact shooter, penalty, A.I.S.
Last year, the A.I.S defeated Brisbane 52-46.
Contact, goal attack,
Good close
penalty,
match between the
A.I.S.
two. Donna Davey, Annette Smith looking after this match at Chandler on this beautiful portable floor. And the Institute through Kerry Duff will be looking to get on the board first. And this is such a young Institute team. You pull out Shelley O'Donnell, who's 28, and the average age of the other 6 is 18.
Yeah, they do look like babes out there, but they're denying that with their performance. As we said, against Garvel, they really had the measure of the match for 3 quarters of the game. And they've opened with a sureness about themselves in this game. It's Queensland that's really forcing the issue and unsettled to start. They need this one through their skipper, Van der Waal. Nervous shot from her.
You call that a shot or a pass? Certainly an air ball if it was a shot. One apiece and a minute gone.
And a turnover against Queensland gives another chance to the Institute to break them.
Quite different clock here. Instead of counting down, it's counting up. That might take a bit of getting used to for us. Try not to lead you astray. Annette Paulson, a miss.
Paulson was slow to start in her last match, but once she came good, she was good. And in fact, whilst the goals were unsure from her, the court play was very good.
Van der Waal. And that's 2 pretty wayward shots from the Queensland skipper.
Hi.
Brought in by Stevens. So Danny Smith. Danny Smith, 18 next month. Victoria Roberts at goal defence, 18 a week ago. You remember your 18th birthday, Anne? It was a long time ago to me.
Cheer unkind, but just to change the subject, I'll say happy birthday, Mum. Good old Apple's been sick and she deserves a cheerio.
Yeah. All the best to Marge. Shelley O'Donnell.
Oh, quick hands from Riding to O'Donnell. And O'Donnell with all the patience in the world.
So the A.I.S off to a good, solid start. Oh, that's quite a collision between Amy Stevens and Amanda Van der Waal. Eyes only for the ball, as you'd expect at this level.
You see Van der Waal retreated in the back space. Stevens kept coming onto the ball.
Touch over 3 minutes left. Lisa. Oh. No way. Oh, yes, Peterson. Van der Waal. And Tollenaire. Every pass under so much pressure. Well, that was a minor miracle. They got that to the post. Queensland bench can barely bear to look. They're now up by 2. Miller, oh, Clark nearly got a finger to it. Sloan, long-range shot is sweet.
Oh, great shooting for Nat Sloan. 9 from 10 as the Institute try to run it home.
2.5.
8 straight, so it's a shooting duel.
Peterson at the stop. Van der Waal.
Contact centre. Queensland.
say that it's sweet timing, but it's certainly tenacious, and there's a lot of fight out there.
Well, you wouldn't look anywhere else to find more commitment. It's
Contact on the arm, pass or shot.
Tollinaire, the lead is 2 again. They just need the crowd to make a little bit more noise, maybe make the difference in the last 2 minutes. Queensland ball. Well, Karen Miller didn't like the call. Got to get on with it.
Institute's bench, Lisa Wilson shaking her head, so their thoughts easy to read.
Both out, obstruction or defence.
Both players out. A 3-goal lead and the centre pass. Queensland closing in on the win. Tollinaire. Only a minute to go. They should be home now. The crowd really starting to make some noise at Chandler. This is the site, of course, of many of the activities during the Commonwealth Games of 1982. And this is a game Queensland will remember. Not that netball was part of it, but... And an air ball and a miss from Paulson. Lisa Wilson gate team looking a little glum. As really, the A.I.S. have led for much of this match. And as I mentioned earlier, it doesn't really matter if you trail for the whole game as long as your name's next to the leading score at the end. And I think it's going to be for Queensland as we're inside the last 60 seconds. They're protecting a 4-goal lead. Stevens to Smith. Queensland will just be relieved to get the win after a miserable year last year. Sloan, Garrett, timekeeper ought to be up shortly to end the game and start the celebrations for Queensland. Peterson. Stevens takes the intercept. Doesn't matter, there's not time enough for the A.I.S. to rescue this. In fact, that's time now. The crowd roars, the bench smiles. Queensland win it against the Game Institute of Sport. A great close match. And Queensland 44-40 winners. So, off the bottom of the table come Queensland with that first win. Well, we're continuing with our viewer competition. First of all, let's bring you up to date with our winner from last week. And it's congratulations to Faye Shelton of Delacombe, Victoria, who rang in with the correct answer. The 83 World Championships were held in Singapore. Faye, the prize pack will be on its way soon. Included in that prize pack are the signed ball, T-shirt and drink bottle, the anorak, which will be perfect for autumn and winter, the ABC cap and the MOBIL League bag. Here's this week's question. Against which country will Australia play a 3-test series later this year? Is it Jamaica? If you think so, call 0055 60524. Is it England? 0055 60525. Or is it New Zealand? 0055 60526. And those phone lines will stay open until Wednesday morning. Good luck. Now to our second match, and it's a replay of the game which last year decided the Prime Minister's Cup when Sydney defeated Melbourne by 8 goals. Now, in 1996, neither side has dropped a point so far, and there'll be more than a little bit of Sydney-Melbourne rivalry happening here. Let's look at the teams, and standing tall and calm in the Melbourne circle is Eloise Southby, whose poise is well appreciated by her feeders, Michelle Bennison and Ingrid Dick, and fellow goaler Danny Arnott. Australian wing defence Simone McInnes is, of course, their captain, and although Janine Lynch is still out with injury, Norma Plummer will be satisfied to field Taverner and Jenke. Sydney work a similar-looking attack end to Melbourne's, with Joe Morgan the big target and Nicole Cusack often the third feeder working with Kenny and Dalwood. Kenny on McInnes shapes as the jewel of the match, while defensively Sydney run a very experienced back three of Demi Kosifas, Sharon Finnan and Keely Devry. Carol Sykes is coach. So it's Melbourne in the dark blue and Sydney with the J tops. And these are the teams which contested the final last year. And Sydney defeated Melbourne twice, actually, in 68-45 in the last round in Canberra, then 53-45 in the final. But this Melbourne outfit a little more mature in 96, Anne, and shouldn't have too much trouble at least running with Sydney.
No, I think this is going to be a really close one. Special game.
Mr. Adams, Janelle Derrington in control of this vital match. Sydney's only played one match. Melbourne 3.
That's one feature that could well make a difference. Melbourne's been in fine form. They've had 3 outings, as you say. Sydney just the one. It was against Fremantle. And that was really just running out some cobwebs from the off-season. I think the answer lies in Jo Morgan, Sydney's towering goal shooter. She's been in great form in goals. And Melbourne have reshuffled their back line to accommodate her, moving Taverner back to her. They'd be more comfortable, I think, if they had Lynch out there with her.
Southby making plenty of noise from goal shooter. She is as important as Morgan is. But at the opposite end, Cusack puts up a long bomb to start. Oh.
And it comes back to her.
A little lucky, but they'll take it. Janelle Derrington working this side, Melissa Adams the far side. Benison.
And if there's any doubt about how important Sydney Energy are taking this game, their president, club officials and sponsors have flown to Brisbane to support them.
Dalwood has it now. Kenny, Cusack, Morgan just holding.
3 seconds called against Nicole Cusack. So the pace is being put on by players and umpires alike.
McInnes. Oh, nice ball down the side to Southby. Ingrid Dick. Arnott bounces it through to Southby, who works with Benison to get it close and get it through. Southby making plenty of optimistic noises from the back. Cusack, Morgan. Taverner strong.
Susie Kenny testing the waters there, and no doubt left in her mind that Taverner can get up there.
Well, good disguise on the feed from Cusack to Morgan, and she acknowledges it.
That was a magnificent shot too from Joanne Morgan. She's only young, and that was a courageous and experienced approach to the goal.
Well, the quality of the defence might mean that shots are taken from well out, and Morgan and Cusack aren't afraid to take those.
No, they're both extremely accurate shooters. In fact, shooting should be a feature of the game. Both teams enjoy a wonderful strike rate through their goal shooters and goal attacks.
Timing on the pass and on the dodge from Cusack. It's well short, though, and Jenke untroubled with the rebound.
Good pressure over that ball from Rose Jenke. Should be working the ground hard on Cusack. Cusack known to be a good mover. So she'll be testing Rose Jenke.
Morgan quickly under Cusack. The turnover at the other end fell into the arms of Devry, and it was up the other end in, what, 3 seconds?
Yeah, Sydney Energy had the numbers, and they made Melbourne pay. See Devry there with front position on Southby, and she picks up the crumbs, but they're quickly down court. Penny turning the ball nicely onto Dalwood, who drives to Morgan. It's Morgan's quick hands that finds him short in numbers.
Nearly 7 minutes gone. Sydney by 4. Taverner came out. One eye on Cusack, one on the ball.
And just a tad too late. And that one's spoiled.
Just a little exchange of words between Cusack and Morgan to try and straighten out what might have been a misunderstanding there. Benison now.
The defence through the mid-third strong from Sydney Energy. Kenny working hard over the ball and across the line. Cusack down there with her. That's a good shot of how they're filling the middle.
Contacting defender, Melbourne penalty.
In defence, Timmy Kossifis defending there. Quickly to it is Dalwood, Kossifis, Kenny, Cusack.
That was a shot that should have been taken by Arnott. She's only had one attempt, and that was for a miss. Perhaps the confidence wavering a little in the Melbourne goal attack.
Sydney by 5. Nearly halfway through the first quarter. Ingrid Dick. Michelle Benison. Devry sprints out. Kenny. Morgan. Doesn't come much quicker than that, one end to the other. But Joe wasn't happy with the position. Cusack. Jenke defending. Cusack goaling. Kinnan, 13-5. This is an embarrassment for Melbourne.
Contact on the hand, goalkeeper.
Contact on the hand against Taverner gives Morgan another opportunity.
They just aren't seeing enough of the ball down in their attack end, Melbourne.
McInnes just waiting. She carried Kenny to that ball. And it's a wonderful battle emerging between McInnes and Kenny. Now foes, but well-established friends.
Arnott, Dick and Arnott.
Instruction, pass the shot.
Arnott only her third attempt so far in the match. No goals yet. That's her first.
Well, minutes elapsed between Melbourne goals. There's only 3 minutes left in the first quarter. And less than half the Sydney score.
Kenny holds it up till she finds Morgan. They swing it across court. Quick hands from Darwood onto Cusack, who steadies and finishes. I think Melbourne are really struggling trying to hold Cusack. The Jenky Taverner switch not working for them defensively, nor is it working for them across their goal attack line.
Another turnover. Kenny gets it straight back.
Instruction, goal defence. Outside, please. Wait
Jenky
for her.
just
outside.
Out of it in this first quarter.
Instruction, goal defence.
Some decisions there for Norma Plummer.
Well, Melbourne also having trouble handling Morgan, who's doing a bit more outside the circle than some other taller shooters. Oh. The crowd appreciating that. Fooled everybody except Nicole Cusack, who was the receiver of the pass.
A strong move from Morgan, and she has the composure to put a slick offload. Great deception from the towering Sydney shooter.
Oh, Morgan now having a screamer.
7 straight for Morgan. She's put up 10 from 13. She certainly wants to catch the eyes of the selectors who have made the trip to Brisbane.
Kenny didn't know that was coming. Sydney have done so little wrong. They are so sharp. A minute left in the first quarter. They probably can't believe it themselves. They better not look at the scoreboard at quarter time. Just go on with the job. They see they're 12 or 13 in front. They might ease off. Southby. This is awesome from Sydney. Now with the Cusack. Morgan backs her up. Cusack. That had to be centimetre perfect.
First foot. Melbourne.
Smiles all round. They are playing so well. They would not have thought they'd score 20 goals in the first quarter and restrict Melbourne to 7.
No, and usually in the energy camp, Keely Debris makes a prediction as to the scoreline. I don't even think she'd be brave enough to have picked a quarter break score of this magnitude. Oh!
Doesn't count, but a nice practice from Joe Morgan. But it's a 20-7 first quarter for Sydney. Can they lose it from here? Melbourne will hope so, but they're in trouble. Sydney looking so good in only their second match. Morgan receives a perfect feed. Not the perfect shot, it was a long one. Not enough possession for Melbourne.
No, possession's a sad story. 11 attempts for Melbourne. Sydney Energy, you can see it, 27. They just ran all over them. 76 and 71 for the Sydney shooters, respectively. Melbourne doing well through Southby at 6 from 8, but Arnott just not in the match. Only 3 attempts and only 33%.
27 shots to 11. Tells you the possession story. Jenky and Taverner have swapped. Jenky's back at goalkeeper, looking after Morgan, or hoping to.
I think, Arnott's the other area of concern. There's hesitation written all over the body language and the face, and even that shot showed she wasn't confident to attack. Very much a confidence player, and she has superb skills, but she hasn't opened well in this game.
Morgan just about took it out of the hands of Jenke. Tall, strong, skillful. It's hard to fault.
Jenke won't do it all on her own, but she'll need Taverner to team up with her. But I think they really needed to promote Taverner down court because it wasn't working as it was. Jenke, full stretch, gets a touch, so that's a start for them.
McInnes
desperately trying to find the drive through the middle, but the timing all gone for Melbourne in this match. They just look like remnants of the Melbourne we've seen in other games.
Melbourne so far have defeated Queensland 71-32, Garble 56-49, and Fremantle 65-32. So perhaps they're stepping up a class. Norma Plummer, the coach, Pat Chappell, the manager. In view of Garble's semi-indifferent form, they played two of the softer sides, and Garble have been out of sorts. Now they're playing Sydney, who won it last year, and they're perhaps being found out a little.
Yes, Sydney against Fremantle in their first outing. That wasn't a great test for them, but they were very composed and they looked very complete. This certainly shows what they're able to put out in.
Tennyson does well to keep it in. Shoulder footwork.
And we're perhaps looking at the first team to do back-to-back. Or does that count if you change your name?
I think so. It's the same club. Still Randwick with the Manly import of Carissa Dalwood. Kenny.
Jenke reading some of Morgan's moves well, and while she gives away precious centimetres, her timing's been much better since she moved back to keeper.
Southby back out to McInnes.
Arnott's still lost out of the game.
Contacting centre from behind, penalty.
Contact. Arnott. Every easy. Thank you.
Barty's contact, shooter.
A bit more pressure in defence coming from Melbourne now.
Penalty.
Obstruction from Arnott. Gossifus to Finnan, fingertips, but straight to Taverner.
Well, Melbourne's creating the turnovers. They've just got to put some through and build the confidence. Jocelyn Bryant was at the post in the break, but she didn't make it to the court. So perhaps that's a thought in Plummer's mind that Bryant might enter the game.
Debris making a good effort to defend from behind.
Melbourne.
Five minutes left in the second quarter. And it's Sydney still dominating. Taking rebounds through Devery and Finnan. Intercepts in the mid-court, and they're continuing to cause problems for Melbourne. It's a better effort defensively from Melbourne in this quarter, but they're not converting what ball they're getting. Kenny.
Goal defender, you're pushing off. Energy penalty. Yes.
Having a pushing off. Is the call from Melissa Adams.
Energy centre. Energy.
Sydney might not have expected to go at the pace they managed in the first quarter. But they're still holding Melbourne at bay. Touch from Jenke. Had a better second quarter end.
Oh, certainly the reshuffling of the defence line has assisted Melbourne's efforts. Unfortunately, they can't push it right down to the circle. But the switch from Taverner to Jenke paying dividends. McInnes has lifted as well.
One misdirected pass there. Symptomatic of the match so far for Melbourne. Not the cohesion at the attack end that they need. Southby and Arnott against slightly lesser defences have been murdering them, but against Devery and Finnan they've struggled.
Well, their timing has been superb in other games, and that's been a feature of their match, that it's been no fuss, simple netball, but the timing has been superb and it's made it look effortless. It's come undone in this game, and when it's come undone, they just look like there's nowhere to go.
That was better. They need a lot more of it. Benison, Southby.
I know they've been critical of their attack in other games, that they think they can find more spaces and open more spaces for themselves, but this wasn't what they were looking for.
Kenny, Cusack. Just a look at the Sydney bench. I don't think anyone's keeping stats defensively on who's pulling down what rebounds, but gee, Keely Devry should have to be player of the match at the moment for her effort in defence.
The bench is settled into the wind. There's a few vacant faces over there. There's no smiles either. Picture of concentration. I think this is one of the finest games we've seen from Devry in a long time. Not that she hasn't been performing well, but she's really pulled this one out. Reply there from Taverner.
Some good defenders on court. Taverner's had a strong game as well. The side that's being shaded at the moment. All Cusack was open and found.
Jenke leaving Taverner exposed then. Call coming too late.
Sydney much more restricted in this quarter. They scored 20 in the first quarter. They've scored 10 and there's only a couple of minutes to go. They've only allowed Melbourne 7. They're still winning this quarter.
Straight up, please. Play.
Benison,
Obstruction
Southby.
and contact, wing. Contact on the hand, goal defence, shot of pass.
Contact on the hand, says Janelle Derrington from
Obstruction.
Finnan on Southby, and a goal. Darwood picks up Cusack. Gets it back, now Finnan.
Contact, energy penalty. Wait for it, yes.
Finnan frustrated by Arnott's slowness to withdraw.
Oh, McInnes. Touch on the stretch and possession to Melbourne.
We've got to give credit to McInnes and Taverner because across their line it's sound. It's really solid.
Southby.
Just unravelling elsewhere.
Found a way through that time. They need it again. We're in the last minute of the second quarter.
Southby out very early then. In fact, it would have been premature. But I think that's how it snowballs when you feel like you're not getting the ball. You tend to sneak off the spot early.
Jill McIntosh, national coach. Pam Smith, Australian netball.
Probably not the result or the match she'd like to see. Sure she's not biased as to the outcome, but I'm equally sure she'd like to see it more evenly contested.
Taverner. Southby to Benison.
That's sweeter timing there. Arnott popping out nicely, holding to the last.
Hold time, please. Yep.
Darwood. Timekeeper's up there. We won't see another goal, I don't think. In this...
Contact.
Well, there is the chance
there
of a penalty shot.
Yes, please.
Morgan makes it count. And that'll be half-time. And a 13-goal lead at quarter time is now 14. Sydney don't look like they can be caught as they lead at 32-18.
Running becomes very important because umpiring is made up of running, but it's also important that you just don't continue to run. There might be some cross-training going on. It might be swimming one day or something like that. But it's also important that you do go out there as part of your fitness and work with teams, whether or not it's identifying, the skill levels of players to see what you can take on board with what they're doing and that sort of thing. So that's also a very important part of the overall picture in fitness.
Melbourne have a new centre. It's Michelle Benison. Get to the full list of changes in a moment. But position was a little better in the second quarter end.
Yes, definite recovery from Melbourne, and South is staying on target. She's been really consistent through the match, 6 from 8 at 75%. Arnott lifting 2 with 5 from 9 at 55. Possession much better for Melbourne. Sydney a touch quieter, but still enjoying a great margin. 6 from 8 for Morgan, 6 from 7 from Cusack. 85% fine stats for her.
Southby has moved back from goal shooter to goal attack. Arnott's gone to the bench. Jocelyn Bryant is on as goal shooter as Sue Kenny takes a fall. Kenny's okay.
Centre third, penalty. On the whistle.
McInnes, Benison.
Energy.
Oh, Taverner struggling with that one. It was awkward for her.
Play. Barney to structure, wing attack.
Dalwood to Cusack.
Barney to structure, wing.
Morgan, fingertips control.
Cusack holding off Taverner. A lot of movement in the post again. Morgan forcing her way through, and maybe Nikki Cusack owes her that dot on the score sheet.
Benison. Southby. Haven't seen a lot of Eloise at goal attack.
Yes, we were.
No, she lacks the speed of other players, but she and Benison offered a nice drive to the circle then, and Bryant quite a slick mover.
Benison to Flyner. Southby to Bryant. This is looking a little better
Obstruction, goal defender.
for Melbourne.
Step back, yes.
Southby takes it again. Devry.
Barney obstruction, goal attack.
Devry supports. Gossifus has it. Finnan. Garwood looking for Kenny.
Contact, wing defend.
How quick was that? And that. Take that. No, they won't. Oh, Cusack's got it back. A little lucky.
Obstruction from behind, goal defend.
Sure, Sydney remember each time they step out that 3 of their players were former Australian players who, across the last couple of years, have lost the favour with selectors and have seen themselves forced out for younger players. So I'm sure they step out and think, well, this is the best we can do. And certainly putting it out there in this game.
Contact, goal defender.
Was wrestled to the ground was Nikki Cusack. Taverner out of play for her enthusiasm.
Morgan, arms too long and too quick.
It was a good stretch from Jenke. She did the best she could, but Morgan right through her.
Barney's breaking wing attack.
That's 2-2 through the first 3 minutes of the third quarter. Melbourne have got to start addressing this deficit. Southby, Finnan defending. Southby, true.
Be interesting to watch Southby's accuracy now that she has greater workload to contribute down court.
Barney's break wing attack.
Cusack and Kenny.
It was just placed on Cusack's hip as she flew to the post.
Well, that's years of playing together, but it's also some raw talent in there. There aren't too many other players who can do it so effortlessly.
No, it's hard to imagine as you watch them play at this level, you know, players that are better for those positions.
Southby.
Barney shot. Energy.
This third quarter assuming the proportions of the first, except it's falling the opposite way. Morgan to Kenny.
Offsides in defence. Retard.
It certainly wasn't in the first 15 minutes the Melbourne we've seen in previous matches. This is now.
Obstruction defender. Goal advantage. Melbourne.
The 2.5 minutes to go in the third.
Wing defence forcing.
And the last quarter should be a beauty.
Yep.
This match really sending mixed messages to both teams. There's good and bad for both of them to take away from Brisbane. And just spare a thought for the other Sydney team and the 2 Adelaide sides who must not be able to make much of it all round.
Yes.
Bryant.
Energy.
Well, Pat Chappell, manager, can afford a smile. Norma, implacable.
Barney's break wing attack. Barney's obstruction centre.
Cusack. To Dalwood.
Oh, Jenke spoils that one.
Just as the match has worn on, Jenke and Taverner just reading the moves that much better and making more of them.
I think Morgan stopped moving. I think she's resorted under pressure to more of the holds, and I think we're seeing the movement from the Melbourne defenders cut that short. Remember that the first quarter and early in the second, Morgan was caught in full flight many times and providing ample movement for the Sydney line. There's the hold again.
Darwood, well, they're both holding there for a moment.
And even that one going against her, she gets caught for pushing off. So if she can think back to the movement she found with such confidence early on, it would be useful to her now.
1 minute to go in the third. And it's Sydney by 5.
On the hands, pass or shot, yes.
By 4. Bryant. Flyner.
Southey puts a screen on. Bryant drives the ball and drives that one through. We've got a game in our hands.
Darwood to Kenny. Morgan. She's going to shoot from that far.
Well, of course, to sink that one would have been a great confidence booster for the Sydney team.
Contacting centre.
Time is up.
Benison was a bit late. Cusack gets it away in time. That's 8 goals for Sydney in that quarter and 18 for Melbourne. So they've really addressed the problem, and it's going to be a lively last 15 minutes. It's 40-36 at three-quarter time. Benison starts the quarter, and it's a loose pass to Flyner. Gives us a chance to look at the third quarter stats.
Well, just look at Melbourne run at home. 23 to Sydney's 14 shots at goal. 11 from 13 for Bryant. A great introduction to the game for her. Southby moved to goal attack. She put up 7 from 10, 70%. Sydney Energy, though, only 3 from 5 for Morgan. Only 5 chances for their main striker. Nikki Cusack quiet too, with 5 from 9 at 55%.
Pinpoint accuracy on the feed for Morgan, and Sydney first to score in the last. Sydney not making any changes. The team that did it in the first quarter ought to be able to do it in the last, I guess. Carol Sykes must figure.
Well, it is a difference in experience when you look to the bench from what's on court. That's not to say they're not talented, but we've got the most experience available to Sydney out there. How important was that first centre for Melbourne? If they could have scored from that and made the margin 3, they could well have got into the game straight away. That almost a silly error from Bryant. It was worth the shot.
Southby goals. Melbourne just need 2 converted turnovers to find themselves on level terms. Kavanagh finds one of them. Flyner.
That's how you lift a team.
Where did she come from? She came very quickly.
Contacting goals for keeper. Shuttle pass.
Contact against Devery.
He doesn't enjoy the call. Kavanagh fast onto the ball, and again, we've seen it earlier in the game. The stop on the take was the undoing for Cusack.
Darwood to Finnan, to Kenny, to Cusack. Haven't found the drive or the ease of possession that they had in the first quarter.
Advantage, obstruction, wing advantage, contact, centre.
Cusack, Kenny kept it in. Benison took it one-handed. Got all the skills, these players. Benison. Bryant.
Contact, wing defence.
Bryant and Southby just playing a positional switch. Don't need to change the actual bibs on the tops to do that. Temporarily sitting Southby back. Bryant doing the work up front.
Bryant brings a little bit of extra height, replacing Arnott. About 5 centimetres difference. Bryant coming in at 183. That's helped their cause a bit. Benison to Flyner. Bryant comes out. Ooh, there was something on that pass. Devery. Finnan. Darwood. Kenny, Morgan.
Keeper, contact, half a shot. A shooter.
3.5 minutes gone in the last quarter. Still a 4-goal game.
Just a bit going on between Jenke and Morgan. Jenke might have been suggesting to Morgan that she took a fall on that last one and that she should stand up and take it. But maybe that can be lip sunk at home another time.
Kenny, Dalwood hounded by McInnes. Cusack cross court to Kenny again. Well, Kenny has really worked out how to feed Morgan. It's worth a swag of goals every game.
Varnish break wing.
Kenny having a look, puts it up. Well placed to the space behind.
Liner at the other end. Finds Southby, now Bryant.
Good vision from Southby to Bryant, and great timing on the dodge.
Well, the closeness and the skill of this contest should please Jill McIntosh and Pam Smith there. Jill McIntosh has got to elect a captain of the Australian team shortly. It's a fairly complicated story with Vicky Wilson yet to come back from injury.
Yes, well, of course, many think that if she's back from injury, she might have front running for captaincy.
Simone McInnes, another starter, and she's in this match.
Yes, well, they haven't disclosed who's in contention. We're presuming a few of the contenders. But what's happened is they've put it to the entire squad to nominate should they wish to be considered for captaincy. Those nominees have been shortlisted and will go before an interview panel consisting of our national coach, executive director, and our national president.
5 is the lead for Sydney. Plenty of time for Melbourne to find these required turnovers. Kenny.
Offside, free pass.
Dalwood just stood her ground and waited for Benison to fall in offside. She obliged.
Yep.
There's really no room for Michelle.
Good speed then from Benison to disrupt that feed. Dalwood to Cusack. See Taverner there just holding off. She'd rather work and assist in shutting out Morgan.
So the Sydney bench there, Leanne McKelson, the physio, Joe Kenny, manager, Carol Sykes on the right.
Wing defence and contact.
Guinness, Liner, Southby to Bryant. It's a little less frantic this last quarter. They're treasuring possession a little bit more.
Well, I think Sydney would have to go out realising that they've built a lead, and if they're composed about it and skillful about it, they should be able to carry away the game. It's Melbourne that have to chase. It's Melbourne that should be in the hurry.
Here's the turnover. Contact against Cusack. She was under a lot of pressure.
Morgan doing well then. She held up the outlet from Jenke.
Liner to Bryant. It's up to the goalers now and the feeders.
Difficult to find some space around Finn and Debris, and
Liner was
Kossifas.
out. Kossifas, a foreign exchange dealer. She's giving a little change to Melbourne today. Kenny leaves it for Dalwood. Cusack over the top for Morgan. And once more the blind pass. She uses it sparingly, but twice it's been a gem from Joe Morgan.
We see there the look to the top of the circle. The offload goes to Cusack. It's probably just as well Simone McInnes was probably the one going to receive that ball at the top of the circle.
Well, it's one thing to do it, it's another to know it's coming. Cusack did well.
Yes, it rests with Cusack. As you say, there's no point wiping and rolling it if it's not Cusack's hands at the end of it.
Dalwood. Kenny. Cusack again. 7 minutes to go. 5 the lead for Sydney.
It's been a tough game. A lot of body on court. This one for a little more breathing space for Sydney.
9-7. Sydney shading Melbourne in this last quarter. Kosifas choked a bit on that far side. Now they use the width of the court a bit better. Dalwood.
Barney's contact swing.
Morgan.
Is that McInnes to Morgan?
Well, it nearly was, wasn't it? They'll take it. It's McInnes from behind Kenny, and it might have been her hand that dished it off to Morgan. Kenny again. Oh, it came in by surprise. Jenky didn't quite have enough time to get up for it. Morgan's always on the lookout for them. The high ball in. Sydney looking a bit more comfortable. Liner. Bryant.
Instruction, keep up from the side. Shuttle pass where you are. Energy.
Well, a goal to Melbourne, but it's slipping away from them. Dalwood to Kenny. 5.5 minutes left in the match. And Sydney, after being given a mighty fright in the third quarter, look like they might be able to take it home from here. Taverner. Liner looking for Bryant. Southey's at the post.
Offside wing.
Benison centre pass. 6 is Sydney's lead. And a bit under 5 minutes to go.
Contact over the shoulder.
I really think come the semi-finals, and you can throw the result of this match out the window. They've shown at various stages that they're a great match for each other, these two teams.
Absolutely. You couldn't credit in a game between two teams that should run goal for goal. You could have both dominate so convincingly at different times in the match. And I think once they've found complete form by semi-finals, you won't see the margin get away on either team. And if you think back to other matches we've had, other Sydney entry has been all-powerful in one of their matches. Contacts has come through, a baptism of fire to beat Garville. I mean, how could you predict the outcome of this competition?
4 minutes left. And 4 is the lead. Melbourne aren't done with yet.
Oh, Devry up well.
On the sideline.
Had a fine game.
Play.
Well, I didn't exactly write Melbourne off, but I didn't like their chances a minute or two ago. But now they're looking like they're back in the picture. Sydney aren't careful here. They'll present themselves a problem in the last couple of minutes. Kosifas.
So I was just about to say, you notice Dalwood's quite steady on the walk back to the centre now, not wishing to rush things. Oh, Cusack made a good move to the post. That one goes against Taverner.
Well, Taverner saw the backward move from Dalwood and picked some room for herself. He's just a fraction of a second late. But it's Jenky's rebound. They can come out anyway. Now it's Taverner. Jenky supports. Benison's there. Flyner, touch from Kosifas.
Off the wing attack.
And they said it's off the wing attack. Melissa Adams inciting a riot from the neutral crowd.
Yeah, well, she had the perfect view of it, Melissa. And the players had their backs to us. A bit hard for us to call.
It was obviously Kosifas that disrupted it, but I think it might have ricocheted off Flyner. Well, according to the umpire, and that's all we'll go by.
It's made it that much harder for Melbourne. 2.5 minutes to go. Finnan soaks up a few seconds, pushing it out. Benison, Bryant, Flyner. Unfortunately for Melbourne, they've got to score them quickly.
And trying to ram that one home. It needed more touch than force.
And Devry was there to delay things again.
Body contact centre.
Bryant. Cusack. Dalwood. Kenny up again for Morgan. They're so well placed. Well, you think on those lobbed feeds in, there'd be time enough to jump up, but she gets rid of the ball so quickly, it does upset your timing.
The other thing is, if Morgan holds to the very end, there's very little room to jump. If Morgan goes early, you can go up and contest it, but if she holds the ground to the very end, pretty well snookered on the outcome.
A minute 20 to go. Sydney by 4. Morgan. Finnan to Cusack. Sydney, having only played one game,
Goal defender, pass or shot. Yeah.
wouldn't have wanted to lose this match, because they then feel that they were in some danger of having a perilous run to the semi-finals. But I think they're going to make it 2 wins from 2 starts now as we get inside the last minute. And Southby to make the lead just 5. Doesn't, and Finnan's there first. Dalwood up for it. Kosifas, Kenny and Morgan. Morgan's been a little better this last quarter after a quiet third. He's moving around better. So Finnan chases after it. Down the sideline in the centre, it's Dalwood. Again, the good use of the width of the court. Cusack. Bounce pass to Kenny. And Sydney bringing this home and scoring a couple of late goals to push the margin out to 8. But except for a little sleep in the third quarter or a resurgence from Melbourne, Sydney looked pretty dominant, and they're headed again for the semi-finals, the defending champions of the MOBIL League, and they take this match against Melbourne 57-49. And Sargent is with Keely Devery.
Thanks, Steve. Well, Keely, if you look at the scoreboard now, you feel comfortable, but I'm sure if you watch a replay, it's the first quarter you want to watch over and over.
Oh, exactly. It was just typical us. It's sort of like go berserk for the first quarter, and then we tend to have a bit of a snooze, which we really should have pushed home, keep going, because they were a bit deflated, and I think we really should have kept going, but let them in a little bit too much. And once they had a sniff of it, they just went berserk.
I don't know about deflated. They must have been demoralised. You wouldn't expect an opening quarter like that, though. You're the ones that have come off only 1 match to date in the series. They've had 3 to run it in.
Well, exactly. We weren't feeling all that confident. Well, we're feeling confident, but not overly prepared. We would have preferred to have a few more games under our belt before we hit Melbourne Puma. But, yeah, so we were quite surprised, I guess, by our start. But it was no excuse for sort of sitting back and having a relax the rest of the game.
How much confidence can you take away from a match like that when you've had a dominant quarter? They've then turned it around third quarter, so they must be able to find some pride in what they've done as well.
Well, exactly. I think if we hit them again this series, it'll be a totally different match. I think that we probably caught them a little bit off guard. We surprised ourselves, I think, the first quarter as well. And I think probably the last 2 quarters is more indicative of the game that would happen if we played them again.
Tell us the truth. What did Sykes say at 3/4 time?
I can't repeat it on TV.
Well, a handy psychological edge there for Sydney Energy, with these 2 teams likely to meet again in the final series. Gradually, the points table grows clearer. Here's how it looks at close to the halfway stage of the season. Contacts top it with 3 from 3 and 6 points. Melbourne also on 6, then Sydney Energy on 4 after 2 matches. The other Sydney team are in the 4, then Garble, who have just 2 to play, then Queensland, Fremantle and the A.I.S. Our Thursday night goal attack program will feature 2 more matches from the Sleeman Centre here at Chandler. That'll be Queensland against Sydney and Melbourne against the Institute of Sport. Remember to enter our competition if you'd like